They called me a disgrace. Not to my face, of course. But I heard it through the walls. The late-night whispers between my parents, the way my sister Emily stopped inviting me to her baby showers, and how my brother Jackson once said, "Why can't you be more like normal people?" The final blow came on the day I lost everything. I stood outside the family-owned office, soaking in rain, shivering, heart pounding, after being kicked out of the very business I helped build. My name? Wiped off the company's website like I never existed. No explanation. No goodbye. Just silence. The kicker? They handed my position to my cousin Tyler, the same guy who once plagiarized my college paper and begged me not to tell. That night, I sat alone in a cheap motel room off Interstate 80, staring at a vending machine dinner, wondering, how did I become the enemy in my own bloodline story? Have you ever felt like the villain in a family that you kept trying to save? Comment broken heart if you've ever been treated like the black sheep just for telling the truth. You know what's funny? I wasn't always the outsider. In fact, growing up in Lexington, Kentucky, I was the golden kid, or so I thought. My dad, Robert, used to call me his little entrepreneur. I'd set up lemonade stands at age 7, complete with upsells for cookies and dollar coupons for repeat customers. He'd beam with pride and say, "This one's gonna run the family empire someday." And for a while, it felt true. I was the first one in our family to attend college out of state. I got into NYU Stern on partial scholarship and worked 3 jobs just to cover the rest. I remember calling home after my first pitch presentation in class. I'd nailed it. Mom, Linda, didn't answer. Neither did Dad. But I told myself they were just busy. I still believed they cared. After graduation, I returned home. Dad offered me a position at Harrison and Company Holdings, the family's construction firm. I started at the bottom, managing inventory and supply chain logistics, but I didn't mind. I loved the grind. I loved watching something physical take form, especially knowing it had our name on it. Tyler, my cousin, joined 6 months later. Late, clueless, but always charming. He was the type of guy who could smile his way out of a DUI checkpoint. I trained him, helped him learn the ropes. I even covered for him when he showed up hungover to meetings. At Thanksgiving that year, Dad raised a toast to my daughter, Harper, the future of this company. I still remember that. The glow in his eyes, the pride in his voice. It was the last time I truly felt seen by my family. Things started to shift slowly after that. Emily's resentment grew when I missed her second baby shower due to a business trip. Jackson mocked me for acting like a CEO before earning it. Even Mom stopped asking how my day was going. But back then, I still thought it was all just temporary. I still believed blood would always back you up, especially when you've given your entire adult life trying to earn it. I had no idea how wrong I was. The shift wasn't sudden. It was slow, like a leak you don't notice until the floor beneath you buckles. It started when Tyler was promoted. He'd been with the company barely a year, yet he was suddenly made director of business development, a role that didn't even exist before. I found out at the same time everyone else did during the Monday morning team meeting. Dad announced it like it was nothing. "Tyler's got a sharp eye for expansion," he said. "We need young blood in that division." I sat there in stunned silence, coffee shaking in my hand. Expansion? That was my proposal. I drafted the entire model for a Midwest franchise pivot. I'd presented it to Dad 2 months earlier. He'd barely skimmed it, said it was a bit too ambitious. But now? That same strategy had Tyler's name stamped all over it. When I confronted him after the meeting, he just grinned. "Relax, Harper. We're family. We all win." But it didn't feel like winning. Then came the office shift. I returned from a supplier site visit one Friday to find my desk relocated to the back corner, the one near the broken AIC vent and the humming electrical box. My nameplate was gone. My ergonomic chair? Given to Tyler's new assistant, Lexi. When I asked HR, they said, Robert signed off on the restructure. I tried to talk to my dad about it, privately, hoping it was just an oversight. He looked at me cold. "You're getting too emotional about small things. Focus on your work." That stung more than I'd like to admit. But the real breaking point wasn't even professional. It was Emily's baby's christening. I was invited, technically. But the group text with the address and timing didn't include me. I found out from my friend Jenny, who saw photos on Facebook while it was happening. When I texted Emily about it, she replied, "Oh, you're always busy with work stuff. We figured you wouldn't come anyway." I stared at the message for a full 5 minutes. Not a single call. Not a heads up. Just assumptions. At Christmas, things reached a boiling point. We were all at Mom and Dad's house. Emily and Jackson had arrived early. Tyler brought wine. I showed up 10 minutes late after a client meeting ran long. I walked in, arms full of gifts, and no one even looked up. Not a hello. Not a Merry Christmas. I placed the gifts down and sat quietly on the couch. Tyler popped open champagne and made a toast to family and to loyalty. The ones who show up when it matters. Everyone laughed. Even Dad. I looked at him, waiting for eye contact. Waiting for a signal that this wasn't what it felt like, a public dig. A slow erasure. But he never met my gaze. He just raised his glass. It happened on a rainy Thursday. I remember because I'd left my umbrella in the car and walked into the office soaked, hair clinging to my cheeks, shoes squeaking against the tile. And no one even blinked. Something was off. The entire floor felt too quiet. I got to my desk, or rather, the desk I'd been moved to, and found a plain white envelope sitting neatly on top of my keyboard. No name. No seal. Just one word typed in bold across the front. Notice. My stomach dropped. I opened it. Inside was a letter, not even on company letterhead, informing me that my position had been dissolved due to internal realignment and strategic redirection. I read it twice, and then a third time. No explanation. No thank you for the years I'd poured into this company. No mention of the fact that I'd given up holidays, vacations, weekends, all for the business that bore our name. I rushed upstairs to my father's office. The receptionist, who now reported directly to Tyler, wouldn't even look at me. "Your father's in a meeting." "With who?" I asked. "Tyler and the executive board." I waited for 20 minutes. Then the door opened, and they filed out, laughing. Tyler spotted me first. His eyes flickered, but his face was unreadable. My father followed behind, and when he saw me, he stopped. "Dad," I said, "you can't be serious. You let them fire me?" His face didn't even twitch. "It's not personal, Harper. The company's moving in a new direction." I looked around at the board members, all of them familiar faces I'd worked with for years. None of them met my eyes. "You told me I'd take over one day," I said, my voice shaking. "You said this business would be mine." He sighed. "I said that when you were a kid, things change." I felt like the floor had been yanked from under me. "And Tyler?" I asked. "He gets everything?" Tyler finally spoke, his tone smug and polished. "Look, Harper, the truth is your approach was traditional. This company needs innovation, agility, a stronger public face. You're great behind the scenes, but leading? That's not really your strength." I stared at him, then at my dad. And something broke inside me. Years of loyalty, of blood, sweat, and sacrifice. Erased. "You could have told me," I whispered. "You didn't have to ambush me like this." My dad gave me a look I'll never forget, tired, almost indifferent. "You'll land on your feet. You're smart, independent." Then he turned and walked away. Just like that. No hug. No apology. Not even a goodbye. I didn't cry in the elevator. I didn't scream or throw my phone or break anything. I just stood there, watching the numbers tick down, floor by floor. When I got to the lobby, I walked out like a ghost, past the security guard I used to bring donuts to, past the receptionist who once invited me to her baby shower. No one stopped me. No one asked if I was okay. It was like I'd never been there. The drive home was a blur. My hands gripped the wheel, but my mind was somewhere else, still in that boardroom, replaying every word, every frozen expression. I got home, kicked off my heels, and collapsed onto the living room floor. Not the couch. Not my bed. Just the floor, cold and unforgiving, like the reality I was facing. I don't know how long I laid there. At some point, the sun went down. The room got dark. Still, I didn't move. Everything I had built gone. Everything I thought was safe, shattered. And worse, I had no idea who I was without that company. My identity was tied to it. My purpose, my pride. I had been Harper Matthews, heir to Matthews Corp. Now, just Harper. Just me. I remember my phone buzzing once. Then again. Dozens of messages, probably. But I couldn't look. I didn't want to look. Because if I saw one more, "I'm so sorry," or "let me know if you need anything," I would scream. No one had warned me. No one had stepped in. And now everyone wanted to be there for the aftermath. No. They could keep their pity. What hurt the most wasn't the job. It wasn't even the money, the title, or the betrayal. It was that I wasn't worth defending. Not to the board. Not to my father. Not even to Tyler, the man I once thought might become family. It felt like dying without actually dying. The grief didn't come in waves. It came all at once. And for the first time in my life, I didn't know how to fight back. Days passed, or maybe weeks. Time lost meaning. But one evening, as I was scrolling aimlessly on my phone, a message popped up from an old friend, Mia. She didn't ask how I was. She didn't offer empty platitudes. Instead, she sent me one line. "You're not the Matthews legacy. You're the Harper legacy. Don't let anyone write your story but you." I stared at those words like they were a lifeline. That night, I sat up in bed, and for the first time, I thought, maybe I don't have to live by their rules. Maybe I don't have to wait for their permission. I started small. I blocked Tyler's number. I unfollowed my father on social media. I deleted emails that dragged me back into that toxic boardroom. And then I did something radical. I signed up for therapy. At first, it felt awkward, like admitting I wasn't invincible. But it quickly became the space where I could unravel all the anger, pain, and betrayal without judgment. I began to understand something crucial. I wasn't defined by my family's approval or the company's success. I was more than a title, more than a role. I was Harper, the woman who could rise from ashes, not because they wanted me to, but because I wanted to. I reached out to Mia, and together we planned a small business venture, something entirely my own, something that couldn't be taken away. No boardroom politics, no backstabbing, just me and my vision. It was terrifying, but for the first time in a long time, I felt alive. Starting over wasn't easy. Some days I wanted to quit, but every time doubt crept in, I reminded myself of one thing. I was no longer the scared girl who waited for approval. I was the woman who built her empire from scratch. The first day I opened the doors to my little boutique consulting firm, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: pride. It wasn't about making millions overnight. It was about freedom. Freedom to make decisions on my terms. Freedom to create a space where people were valued, not just numbers on a spreadsheet. Mia became more than a friend. She was my partner, my rock. Together, we crafted a vision that was rooted in integrity and passion. Slowly but surely, clients came. Word spread about the new Harper, the woman who had been betrayed but refused to stay down. I reconnected with a few family members who saw the change, not just in me, but in how I carried myself. Some doors stayed closed. And that was okay, because I had opened a better one. One where I didn't have to fight to be seen or heard. I had found my voice. And this time, no one could take it away. If there's one thing I want you to take away from my story, it's this. Family isn't always about blood. It's about who stands by you when everything falls apart. If you've ever felt betrayed, abandoned, or like the black sheep, know this. Your story isn't over. You have the power to rewrite it, to rise from the ashes, to become the boss of your own life. So wherever you are right now, I see you, and I believe in you. If my story resonated with you, please share your own journey in the comments below. Let's build a community where no one feels alone in their pain or triumph. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, because your story deserves to be heard. And together, we rise.